Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. First, just a motion moved by Councillor Rabbitt, seconded by Councillor Michelli, that council reconvene in open session at 5:31 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. Just to the members of the public that are watching, I'm sorry for my inaccurate estimation of how long we would be in closed session. The first part, again, of closed session deliberations was just related to the questions that will be used for the CAO interview process, as well as finalizing some details in regards to scheduling for that day. And then the second part that I much underestimated the time that would be spent was in regards to a number of legal matters that are being directed by Norfolk County, I guess, at this time. So we're going to move through each one of those and just move those directions to legal counsel in open session here. So the first motion that I have is that council directs staff to undertake the direction provided on item 4A and 4A. A was the CAO recruitment, shortlisting, update, and interview preparation. If I could have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Rabbitt, and seconded by Councillor Geisens. All those in favor? And that's carried. The next motion has been moved by Councillor Van Passen and seconded by Councillor Huffman, that council approve the recommendation of legal counsel upon item 4B, and that is in regards to, is that the Hastings Drive, 4B? That's in regards to Hastings Drive. And for the clerk, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote on this one, if that's possible.
Councillor Geisens. Yes. Councillor Rabbitt.
No.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
No.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Michelli.
No.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Mayor Chop.
No.
The item passes 5-4.
Okay, the next matter now is the update on the LPAT appeal with cannabis. And that's been moved by Councillor Rabbitt, seconded by Councillor Taylor, that council approve the recommendation of legal counsel upon item 4C. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, that's carried. I think Councillor Van Passen is paying attention. The next one is that council receive the update of legal counsel upon item 4D for information, and oops, my apologies. 4D was an update in regards to Clonmel. That's been moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Rabbitt. All those in favor? And that's carried. The next motion, I'll need a mover and a seconder, and this is in regards to the LPAT appeal that was filed by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in regards to the lot swap. Motion reads as follows: that council send a letter requesting the support of Norfolk County Council's decision by Haldimand Norfolk MPP Toby Barrett in the matter of the LPAT appeal made by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, on the basis that Norfolk County Council is conforming with the provincial policy statement, and that Norfolk County Council's decision follows the intent of the provincial policy statement by not only preserving prime agricultural lands, but actually results in a net increase to those prime agricultural lands protected by the province. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. And the next one is in regards to a matter of disputed lands in Ward 6. And I'll need a mover and seconder that council receive the memo 4F for information. Mover and seconder, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? That's carried. And next is that... Oh, so my sincere apology. The last item was not in regards to the Ward 6 matter. That was in regards to the... Could you help me out there, Andy? That was the memo that had been provided to us by Ms. Budis, that she wasn't here to present on. Again, all those in favor? And that's carried. And the next memo is in regards to the disputed lands matter in Ward 6, and it reads that council received an update on item 4G and reaffirmed their previous direction. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Geisens. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And I believe that's it for now. So now we're moving on to, my understanding, if it's okay with council, we're going to jump ahead to the report on the policing matter. I can't remember how it was phrased exactly. The paid duty officer memo.
Thank you, Mayor Chop and members of council. As an update, at the December 3rd, 2019 council and committee meeting, council deferred report number ECS 1954 to allow the County Solicitor and Police Services Board an opportunity to review paid duty officer requirements. In follow-up to council's direction, staff met with the Police Services Board Chair on December 11th and also attended the Police Services Board meeting held on December 18th to obtain feedback and answer questions from board members. Subsequent to the PSB meeting, PSB Board Chair Trevally provided the attached email dated December 29th to summarize the latest discussion at the PSB meeting, which is attached to your information memo. Further to the initial consultation provided by the County Solicitor for report number ECS 1954, as directed by Council, staff requested that the County Solicitor provide a legal opinion regarding the matter, which has also been attached in the confidential supplemental memo for your information. Police Services Board Chair Trevally is in attendance today along with Inspector Varga. Chair Trevally will speak to any specific questions that council may have on this particular issue. You will remember, as noted in the report, staff are currently in the process of reviewing the special event permit process in accordance with Norfolk County Council's strategic priorities in effort to streamline processes to achieve a common sense approach and ensure practices and systems improve the client experience. We will be issuing a survey later this month to special event organizers to solicit feedback and information to help us streamline the process. Upon completion of the review report, along with the results of the survey, will be presented to council for further consideration. With that, staff will assist with any questions that council may have on the paid duty officer issue.
Any questions for Mr. Arlington? Mr. Grozel has just informed me that Paula has reached out and said that her confidential memo she was comfortable with it being made for public release. So I guess the first step, if somebody wishes to move that for public release, they could do so. Councillor Martin, and seconded by Councillor Huffman. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? So that memo will be posted to the Norfolk County website. And anything further from council? Guess we could just receive this as information for today.
Through the mayor, if I may, if there's any specific questions, I believe that Police Service Board Chair Trevally will speak to any of those specific questions that council had from the December meeting.
I don't think, I think it would be beneficial for Mr. Trevally probably to have read the memo as well, unless have you seen it? No.
Through the mayor, I don't believe Chair Trevally has seen the detailed memo. However, we've been working closely with Chair Trevally and the county solicitor, along with the comments that Chair Trevally provided on December 29th. So I think very much it aligns with the thoughts of the Police Services Board.
So what kind of direction are you looking here for, Shelley?
To be received as information, and staff will continue to consult with the OPP on policing requirements. However, it is up to the county to determine what requirements are needed, and we'll continue to work with our OPP and with staff to determine if any paid duty officers are needed. It seems to me from the discussions that we've had from December to now that we'll be able to mitigate most of those costs. I don't want to speak specifically, but Chair Trevally could probably speak to those, but I think we've made significant progress.
Did you wish to speak to the matter, Chair Trevally?
Thank you, Worship, and members of council for the opportunity to speak to this. And as Ms. Darlington has indicated, it's a work in progress still. The consultation is taking place. We hope that the outcome will be something that Norfolk County can take pride in. But the initiative really has an ambition to diminish or mitigate liability. And whether it's diminished by the presence of OPP officers is something that the organizer themselves, working with the county, is going to have to determine. I mean, from a liability perspective, there are only 4 things you can do. A little bit of education. You can accept the liability, or you can get rid of the liability altogether. That one might be a bit expensive in some cases. You can transfer it, i.e. get insurance, or you can mitigate it. Those are the only 4 things you can do with liability. And the road that is being taken right now is to try to mitigate as much as possible. So the process, as you well understand, council will determine road closures for events. They will determine if it's a community event or not. And then from that process, the application is looked at by staff. The form goes out, and one of the questions in the form is, do you require OPP presence? We do know that the OPP themselves have a corporate policy, and that corporate policy is around paid duty officers, and the drop is 4 hours at whatever the fee is, that auxiliary officers can work with them, but the badged officer must be present. If the badged officer is not present, then the auxiliaries are pulled as well. So all of that background for you help you understand some of the dynamic that's happening. What we also want to appreciate is, let's say that a group has a march. They don't come here and ask for a road closure. They don't get a permit for a parade or anything else, yet it causes a reaction from the police for safety purposes. That's a call for service. That's on our hook. We're going to pay for that. So I think that as we move forward, there has to be a bigger appreciation for some of the things that happen in Norfolk County. We had the teachers that were in front of Toby Barrett's office just the other day. That caused a response by the OPP. Now, fortunately, we're not paying for the provincial team to come down and look at that event. But having said that, there was a call for service. So I think it's bigger than just the fairs and events that we have. And council, in their wisdom, will have to look at the impact on the Houghton Fair. Can they afford to pay for the duty officers versus the Port Dover Parade, whether it's the Santa Claus Parade or the July 1st, which is probably the biggest one. Is it Art in the Park or whatever it's called today? All of these things happen. Is it the event that happens downtown Simcoe for the offshore workers and trying to integrate those people into the events of the community? There's so many things happening. And a lot of them can't afford the $600 or $800 or whatever it costs. So council, to you, this is all going to come back at some point, right, Shelley? And it's a work in progress, but just to give you an indication and an understanding of the dynamics that are in play at this particular time. That came out of a question a few months ago about the Santa Claus Parade in Port Dover. So I'll address any questions, but certainly be assured that the Police Services Board, working with our police services and the inspector and his staff, are looking to work with Shelley and her team and resolve all these issues.
Thank you, Chair Trevally. Any questions from council? No? Okay, thank you. If I get a mover and a seconder then to receive Memo's information, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next we're into, we'll go back to communications here. First is moved by Councillor Columbus, second is moved by seconded rather, sorry, by Councillor Rabbits, that the communication from the Honorable Steve Clark of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the transforming and modernizing the delivery of Ontario's building code be received as information. All those in favor? That's carried. The next is a motion moved by Councillor Guys and seconded by Councillor Columbus that the communication from Brad Thompson regarding high water levels along the Upper Great Lakes be received as information. Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In addition to receiving that as information, I'd like to move that the mayor be directed to draft a letter to the federal and provincial governments as required, sort of to ask them to make note of the suggestions that are offered up in that letter to see if we can do something about the high water levels that everybody's dealing with lately.
That the mayor be directed to write a letter to the federal and provincial government supporting Mr. Thompson's,
Supporting the concepts listed out in there.
supporting the concepts as presented in Mr. Thompson's letter. Is that fair? Sufficient? Mr. Michelli? Councilor Michelli?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would like to second that motion, please.
Okay, so that has been moved by Councilor Geisens and Councilor Columbus. I'm assuming you're comfortable here. We'll have Councilor Van Passen move that full motion and then seconded by Councilor Michelli. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Next is that the communication from Martin Keller regarding support for actions to address over-application of winter maintenance chemicals to protect sources of municipal drinking water be received as information. Moved by Councilor Columbus, seconded by Councilor Rabbits. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next is that the draft letter respecting provincially significant wetlands be approved. Need a mover and a seconder. Councilor Geisens. And seconded by Councilor Taylor. If you could.
So at the CIC meeting, there was a direction for this letter that will be sent by the mayor's office to be brought forward to council for review or approval. So if there are any changes or alterations, if council could note them now.
I guess I just sort of would have thought that there would have been a little bit sort of more detail with kind of some of the suggestions that had originated from the kind of the draft from Ottawa that I had presented of what exactly specifically we're looking at in terms of an appeal process and any thoughts on that, Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you. And through you, I was hoping for a little bit more language in terms of what the appeal process may look like, in addition to the fact that we had taken issue with some of the boundary adjustments and that we felt that there were some inaccuracies on the ground. So I would hope to maybe defer for a second draft. I'm not sure what the timelines are. This is necessarily something that is urgent, that has to be passed this evening. How about we have a second attempt at a draft and we can approve that at the next council?
Okay, so you're moving for a deferral then? Okay, Councillor Rabbits is moving for a deferral now, and seconder for the deferral. Will you, okay, so it's Councillor Martin? Perfect.
We, just to amend that a bit, could we defer it to the mayor's office and then we'll work with the mayor's office and Paula to get a final draft?
Okay. Fair enough. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thanks. Sorry, just stand by here. My apologies. Give me 1 second. Okay, now, just moving on to the approval of minutes here. We have 2 sets of council minutes before us for review and approval on pages 33 and 47 of the printed agenda. Are there any errors or omissions to note? Okay, seeing none. Next on to the reports of committees. We have council and committee minutes from January 14th on page 51. Moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Geisens that they be approved. Councillor Columbus.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I was asked to, if there was any issue with respect to item number 25, that's the Big Marsh drain with the water control structure. I was asked to check with the LPRCA, who controls 51% of that particular project, and they had no concern with respect to the water control structure being removed. I did receive correspondence from Chris Dunn and also Paul Gagnon, and it was a prototype, and it has never really worked effectively. It has been backing up water onto the farmer's property, so the structure will be removed and it will be used in another project. Perhaps Mr. Godwin's got more to add, but so there was no need to pull that, so I just left it. Okay.
And were you able to have discussions with them while we're at it in regards to whether or not there was an opportunity for some funding on the other restoration? Okay. Go ahead.
Through the mayor to council, one of the conversation pieces last week around this was surrounding the funding potential for the Gilbert Road culvert. We did have some conversations with LPRCA staff who basically took a quick look at that project scope and what funding was available, and we were advised at this time there isn't really anything that project would fit into. So as it currently stands, the direction relating to that was just to kind of to park that, and staff will be bringing back some more detailed information through the course of the summer on various bridge projects and that one in specific.
And the Gilbert Road one, is that the one again that the same individual owns the land on either side? Or no, that was the first one. Yeah, that was the first one. Okay. So again, moved by Councillor Robbins, seconded by Councillor Geisens that those minutes be approved. All those in favor? That's carried. Next, I have a mover, Councillor Michelle. I need a seconder that the public hearing committee minutes of January 7th, 2020 be approved. Seconder? Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, I have a motion moved by Councillor Michelle and seconded by Councillor Rabbits that the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee minutes of November 21st, 2019 be received as information. All those in favor? It's carried. That the Norfolk County Public Library Board minutes of November 27, 2019 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? It's carried. That the Norfolk County Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of November 19th be received as information. Moved by Councillor Geisens, seconded by Councillor Michelle. All those in favor? It's carried. The Special Recreational Facility Advisory Board minutes of December 2nd, 2019 be received as information. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Geisens. Oh, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. There are two motions, actually, that I would like to have a discussion about. Page 92. Firstly, I don't necessarily think that this one needs to go on the floor. I think it's a given, and Mr. Cridlin's heavily involved with that project and all the meetings, but the motion was that the advisory board would ask council to advise staff that as part of the regular review of public transportation needs, to give certain special consideration to the project. I think that goes without saying. We're certainly not at that point in time yet. I just would like to make a note of that. However, there is one of the two motions I would like to put on the floor to discuss, that the Recreation Facility Advisory Board recommends that staff investigate what aspects of the funding application could be made public and that our information would be posted on the All Norfolk Community Hub website. The intent is just to stay transparent, look at our application that we've put in. A lot of the information was not shared with the public at the time. Things like funding criteria for land selection. Was there more information that could be shared with the public? And now that the application has gone in to do that.
I thought we had already moved that the whole application was going to be public.
I think that Mr. McQueen had advised that there were certain aspects that we were keeping close to the chest until the application went in, just to keep a competitive edge. And I don't know that staff have since then gone through and shared more.
No, I understand leading up to it, but I always thought that that was already sort of our agreement, was that it would be.
I'm not sure the status of it with staff, but I just know that came forward as a
Do you have any
motion
comments,
from
Paul?
RFAB.
Is there any concerns that you have with releasing any of that information?
Through the chair to county council. I don't see any. I would like to probably review the application and maybe sit with clerks and finance just to be sure there's not. And if there isn't, I don't see any reason why we can't put that out, or if there is, we can let council know reasons why.
No, and I think that's the intent of the motion. Whatever staff is comfortable with, if it needs to go through the mayor or go through, I'm not sure, Paula, or whatever needs to be done, that's fine. But whatever information we're able and capable of sharing with the public, let's share it.
So did you want it to be that the Special Recreational Facility Advisory Board minutes, December 2nd, 2019, we received information, and that the CAO work with the mayor to determine what information can be publicly released?
Sure.
Mover and a seconder for that, so moved by Councillor Martin, and seconded by Councillor Rabbits. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. The next is moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Rabbits, that the downtown revitalization meeting minutes of January 10th, 2020 be received as information. Councillor Michele?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a couple of questions about the minutes of this meeting, and I'm looking around here, and I think probably the only person who I can get to answer that question will be Councillor Columbus. He was there, and it indicates that on two different occasions, the CEO of our library gave two separate reports. She is not listed as being present at the meeting, so were those reports given in some other form, or is that just an omission in the minutes?
Sorry, Councilor Michele, I arrived late at this meeting due to another commitment, so I wasn't there when that was given.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure
Perhaps
if
we can find that out.
we can take care of that. Thank you. And Madam Mayor, one other item from that same those same minutes with regard to this may be a bit of form, but it indicates on page 96 at the bottom, the adjournment, it says the meeting was terminated. I hope no one was hurt.
To the clerk, how would you like to handle that error then, that we believe?
Mr. Clerk, I'm just curious what time a meeting ended. I've just never seen that before in any minutes.
I didn't mean that error, I meant the error with Ms. King.
I can, I'll contact the minute taker and I'll have them correct.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Michele, still seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, that the Simcoe BIA minutes of November 20th, 2019 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Rabbits, seconded by Councillor Michele. All those in favor? Carried. That the Simcoe BIA minutes of December 18th, 2019 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Rabbits, seconded by Councillor Michele. All those in favor? And that's carried. That the report ECS 19-54 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Staff reports, we just had the one, I believe. The second staff report we deferred at the beginning to the February meeting when a more comprehensive report is going to come forward on all of the boards. So moving on to the bylaws, I have a motion moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Columbus, that bylaw 2019-96, bylaw 2020-02, bylaw 2020-05 inclusive, bylaw 1-OP 2020 to bylaw 3-OP 2020 inclusive, and bylaw 1Z 2020 to bylaw 8Z 2020 inclusive be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and fixed the corporate seal. Councillor Van Passen.
Madam Mayor, could I withdraw bylaw 7Z-2020? I do believe there's an error in the bylaw that haven't confirmed one way or the other, and I would hate to prove it because it's a rather serious little mistake, I think. And it is on page 190. Section 4, 3.2.3B, number 1, it says that the accessory dwelling, residential dwelling unit shall be nearer than 3.3 meters from a lot line. I think it's supposed to be not nearer, so that's an exact opposite of what I believe it should be. So I don't think we should pass it without getting that verified by staff.
Okay, so we'll withdraw that one from the list, and then we'll move that one separately. So Councillor Rabbits has moved the list, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? Oh. Slacking, Councillor Michelli? 127, 131, and 149. Okay, we'll make those corrections. And any further discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Now I have a motion moved by Councillor Van Passen that bylaw 7Z 2020 be referred back to staff for review. Need a seconder? Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That's carried. And I guess now we're over to general announcements. Look at that. Any general announcements from anyone? I guess just to give council and the public a brief overview of who we spoke with at Roma. So on the first day, we spoke with Minister Clark from Municipal Affairs and Housing. We spoke in regards to the land swap, or the lot swap rather. We also touched base on, there was previous direction from council to discuss right near the beginning in terms of what could be done on the Hastings Drive situation moving forward into the future if we ever wanted to proceed in that direction. Unfortunately, time didn't allow. But I am just drawing a blank, Councillor Martin, if you might be able to help me out on the other topic with him. Oh, the severance issue. We had agreed with Mr. Klein that we would raise that issue and sort of inform them of our position that we might be taking moving forward. There didn't seem to be any immediate objection to it, but they also seemed rather receptive in some ways to the lot swap that they're challenging. So I guess time will tell what happens with that. And I think that's about all we got to. We talked a lot about the challenges and stuff that are facing Norfolk County currently. Then we had a meeting with
Provincially significant
provincially
mapping.
significant wetlands as well. That's correct. So that was the other big topic that we discussed. And basically what we had touched on in council, having an appeal board. Not that we don't support provincially significant wetlands, we do, but having that mechanism for owners to at least have a way to challenge those designations if they didn't feel that they were accurate, as well as some of the other ideas that we had touched on that day.
And potentially something to include in your letter that you had mentioned to them, which I didn't see in your letter, was you did offer them up some type of appeal process, but you also offered them the route to compensate the landowner. So maybe you want to remind them of that as well in the letter. And the only other thing was we thanked them for their efforts on tiny homes, and they did want an update on Norfolk County and our tiny homes. They were quite pleased to hear that we had jumped on it already and worked on it.
Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering if you also might want to comment on our meeting with MTO regarding Highway 24.
Yeah, no, I was going to go through the list. I was just trying to remember exactly what order they happened in. I should have had that written down here for right now. It's all a bit of a
Sorry.
blur in those couple days.
Mayor Chop, quick meeting with, a brief hallway meeting with infrastructure occurred next.
Well, I wouldn't have considered that one probably a meeting, but we did drop by the parliamentary assistant, Stephen Crawford, to the Minister of Infrastructure, and we were able to drop him off a copy of the hub application just to sneak it under his arm so he could take that back with him. And then we also, so we did meet with the Ministry of Transportation, and there was two issues on that, actually. One was in terms of the Highway 24 expansion. It was our understanding that the road allowances were there from many years in the past and trying to push for, we need some help down in Norfolk County, and that certainly would be a huge benefit to us and being able to grow an industrial base here. Unfortunately, they did not seem particularly receptive. They told us that they check the traffic counts regularly and that we were not meeting that threshold. So we will keep pressing on with that. The next issue that we discussed was in terms of the Causeway Bridge and some of the challenges with some of the permits that we're going to require for the habitat destruction. And I haven't had a chance to actually tell you this yet, Jason, but one of the members that was there actually has offered to come down to Norfolk County and assist in drafting some of those applications and so on, or if there was any help that was required. They were willing to take the drive down, so that was good news. Then we also had we met with, on behalf of SCORE, we met with the NDP party. We also had a meeting with the Liberal Party and the Green Party. Those we certainly spoke again at length about the gas well issues, and they are also deeply concerned that that matter still has not been resolved from the province and are willing to assist us in any way that they can. The Liberal Party, in fact, suggested going through the Minister of Health, given that this is clearly a major health concern that's impacting our residents, so we will take them up on their offer to help us in that regard. And we then also had a meeting with Minister Scott. We actually were initially denied our meeting request. However, I wrote them back and I acknowledged that while they may be very busy and have tight timelines, that our water situation in Norfolk County was of matter of critical public safety and concern, and that perhaps they might find the time to fit us in, and they did find the time to fit us in, and we had a joint meeting with Mayor Hewitt and Chief Mark Hill from the Six Nations, as well as myself. The Haldeman CAO was also in attendance, along with some council members on both sides, as well as some council members from Six Nations. And so we furthered our discussion with situation in Port Dover. They are acutely aware now of the importance of moving that ahead, and they are also going to be facilitating a meeting now with the minister from the Ministry of Environment. They felt that that was the important next step. The Premier's Office Chief of Staff has also requested a full update as well from that meeting, so it is very much on their radar at this point. And who am I missing? Nobody? Oh, we had a meeting with the Warden's Caucus. It was a multi-ministerial designation, or delegation rather, and there was everybody there from, Minister of Transportation to the Attorney General to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, you name it. It was a packed room, as well as all of the members of the Western Warden's Caucus, their CAOs, myself, and the minister's aides, and so on and so forth. And the couple, a number of issues that touched the Warden's Caucus as a whole, but at the very end, they had asked if there were any other issues that had not yet been covered. And so I jumped in on the cannabis matter, and we were able to have a back and forth with Minister Hardeman. And I still think that the province is putting all of the blame on the federal government, when I do believe that there's significant blame, and they definitely have the easiest tools to be able to change this, but I certainly don't believe that that's absolving the province in any way, and I believe that there are tools through the Ministry of Agriculture as well as the Ministry of Environment that if they so chose to draft regulations to be able to assist municipalities, that that there are options there. But as it stands right now, they seem to keep passing the buck on that one.
You just forgot that we were live for the SWIFT announcement, and specifically the point where Councillor Michelli yelled from his seat, "Go Norfolk," after the Premier announced funding.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Well, I think we should touch on that. So that was a huge announcement for Norfolk, and the Premier made that. We had been holding back. We knew for the last couple, well, I was aware, as well as Councillor Michelli, that announcement was going to be coming out. We were sworn to secrecy until the Premier had found the right time to make the announcement. And Norfolk County is part of 3 municipalities that are going to be a part of the initial it's phase 2, but really it's the initial kind of phase of the rollout, what some might term a pilot project. And we were really fortunate because of the way that the funding allocation went through the RFP process. The province was willing to kick in up to a certain amount, and then the provider would fill in that additional. In the case of Waterford, Rogers was so keen to win that bid that they actually kicked in more than they needed to and minimized the province's share, which is why Norfolk County ended up getting a third RFP out of the deal. And I believe the number was that we received 45% more than we were originally allocated for. So we actually came out the strongest of all 3 of the municipalities, which is fantastic news for us. I was just reading some comments online to that and people suggesting why did they choose this area or why did they choose that area. And I think it's important to note that we had absolutely no power to decide which areas were going to be allocated. It was strictly through the RFP process. They had to present a business case. It was based on how much funding they were willing to kick in. So in the case of Waterford, that was, the most competitive plan that they could have put forward. And that's how that decision was made. Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add to your comments about the news about the SWIFT initiative being in Norfolk County, and I don't know if I can emphasize enough how significant that announcement is for Norfolk County. And just to kind of reiterate something I had mentioned well before the last, I think, 12 months, where all of the members of the SWIFT board have been under a strict order of secrecy or silence on this topic. And so it is nice that announcement finally did come out and indicates that Norfolk is in very, very good shape in that regard, and we did very well, as the mayor has just pointed out. Also, the number of people who may be somewhat disappointed because they're not on those initial 3 locations of Turkey Point, Long Point, and Waterford. And obviously, I understand their frustration. They've been very patient for so long, and they're going to have to continue to be patient. But they also should keep in mind that this is the beginning. It will continue to expand, and there is eventually the plan is for a good portion, perhaps not 100%, but a good portion of Norfolk to have high-speed fiber optic internet capability over the next 2 or 3 years. So I was just very delighted that the Premier made that announcement on Monday and that we're able to make all of this public. So we are very happy about that, obviously, and I think it's just another good example. I just wanted to mention, if you remember way back, there are 37 municipalities that were eligible who are part of SWIFT, and Norfolk County was deemed to be the most in need of this project, and that's why we were the #1 selection for these projects. So it's just, I think, a great news day for Norfolk County in general.
Thank you, Councillor Michelli, and thank you for all of your work on the SWIFT board. That was also, for everybody that's not aware, a big thank you to the Western Wardens Caucus, too. They were really the drivers behind all of that. So with that, I guess just your Turkey Point comment reminded me there was another meeting with the Minister of Energy, Northern Affairs and Mines that I attended, a round table on the new gas expansion. And as you have all read in Monty's article in the newspaper, that Turkey Point is one of the prime locations that they are looking at applying for that funding for. So Turkey Point could have a natural gas and fiber, or not could, but will have fiber internet and could maybe have natural gas. So with that, any other questions? Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one question about that I had asked at our last council meeting regarding a question I had about the minutes from the Agricultural Advisory Board. And I think in the interim I have received some information about this. And again, I think I'm going to have to ask Councillor Columbus about this question just to confirm. But in those minutes, which I think all council has been provided with those minutes, and thank you to the clerk for that. It indicates under the number 4, the action tracking table, the second bulleted item from the bottom, that it refers to County Road 45 Bridge, and it says awaiting MOE ruling, and then Google Maps has been contacted by staff, and I'm not exactly clear what it is that's referring to. If you're able to do it, and I do not intend to put Councillor Columbus on the spot, he's just the only person
You're
I
asking
have.
about the County Road 45 bridge?
Yes, I am.
Okay. In my last communication with Mr. Jason Godby's employee up there, Dean, he's informed me recently that they've had no answer back from the MOE.
But Councillor Columbus, I'm just curious, what is the question?
What's the question? I haven't got it in front of me. So
Okay. Because I'm just wondering why, and I think I understand the little bit of information I did receive is that the reason it's on this tracking table is that apparently people are driving down that road and they're not aware that the bridge is closed and that Google Maps needs to be consulted to let people know. I think that's what it is. I just wanted to get confirmation.
I see. Okay, you're talking about Google Maps should be consulted with respect to
yes,
the closure.
but it doesn't really indicate that. It says the MOE, I don't understand the connection between the MOE ruling and Google Maps. That's, I guess, what I'm confused about.
And I don't understand it either.
Okay.
But,
I think you both should get in the middle of the ring right now.
Perhaps Mr. Godby's department can notify, we should be notifying Google Maps that it is closed. And I've been getting calls about it. When's it going to open? When's it going to open?
I think Councillor Michelli's bigger question is, was something submitted by the Agricultural Advisory Board in contravention to Council's decision?
I do not believe it was.
Okay. Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I happen to be a spectator at that meeting, and that was my correct recollection. There was a question sort of to the side about why it's taking so long, and but the real concern was that it's not listed on Google Maps as being closed, and then with our agritourism business, people are driving around trying to pick up their wine and their fresh vegetables and their fresh meat and all those things, and then they show up and the road is closed, and they wanted somebody to contact Google Maps and get that straightened out. And I think that's why the discussion on the timing, because, you know, if they're going to start working on it shortly, it'd be one thing, but if it's going to be closed for a while, and so it was not brought up as anything other than we can't get there from here.
I think what's probably making Councillor Michelli raise that question is there was actually a previous Agricultural Advisory Board meeting many, many months ago, subsequent to Council's decision being made, still discussing the Bridge 45 issue when it was clear that Council had made a decision. I do recall that quite clearly. Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My last point in question is I've just learned from Mr. Godby that and if you recall, at our last council meeting, Councillor Van Passen had requested that the Parsons engineering firm associated with the Causeway project report to council soon. And I have learned, and I will let Mr. Godby speak to this, that he's anticipating that they will be returning to speak to council in March. And I'm partly just checking to see if that time frame is acceptable to Councillor Van Passen, because he did ask about it.
No, I don't think that's acceptable. There's way too many questions and unanswered questions, and it's been a while, and they sort of committed last time they were here that they'd, you know, be at our beck and call if we had questions. So I wonder if we could speed up that process a little bit.
I could too. I'm just not sure, even if all 5 of them can't come, maybe at least one of them could come to answer some questions. I can understand how it'd be difficult to coordinate 5 people to come all the way down here.
Through the chair to council, we can definitely work on Parsons and get something here. Basically, the crux of that discussion that Dean and I had, who is our Norfolk County project manager on this file, was mainly relating to the fact that where they are in the design stage for the bridge and for the roadworks, we're basically looking at our 60% design submission should be coming in right at the start of February. So our thought process was more around the fact that it's been relatively quiet right now. Then we would have received these 60% design submissions, had a chance to review and comment on them, provide them back as well. By that point, we'll be much closer to having any of the archaeological investigations being reinitiated since they've been shut down for the winter months. So that was just kind of our thought process. We hadn't even brought this up to Parsons to say yet we want you here sooner than that. So it's definitely a conversation we can have. I guess what I would be requesting of council would be if you give me kind of a brief overview of what types of questions you're looking to have answered, so I know which individuals from Parsons would be best suited to attend this meeting.
I think what we're looking for is information, have all of the, permits been applied for? And if they haven't been applied for, why haven't we got down that road? Where are we in the design stage? When are we looking at construction commencing? What kind of assurances? Is that still, we're hoping that it's going to start in August, or is that, we're on track to it starting in August? Any further comments? It's just really understanding where we're at in the project so that, we know that this is moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, and just maybe a couple of items, that the last time Parsons was here, they gave us some indications that they were going to be able to give us a little bit more of a clear picture about the road allowances when the new construction took place. A couple of items that they mentioned about the actual design of the bridge with regard to some of what they were describing at that time, some heritage features that we were kind of a little bit concerned about or wondering about. So those kinds of things. And again, if that helps Mr. Godby in his communications with him about just some of the things, and again, maybe just an opportunity to ask them some questions that may come to mind.
And then the other thing that just came to mind as well, I read the article yesterday from Monty. So there was the announcement that was released about the provincial infrastructure funding. So everybody's aware that is that funding is on an allocated basis. So it's a formula that every municipality is going to receive X amount of dollars. The only one that I was surprised to see was the additional $2 million in there, and I was wondering, Kathy, if you might be able to touch on what the additional 2 was, because I can just tell you why I was surprised. I thought that was part of the first round of the Green Stream funding, but it's not. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to members of council, yes. The $2 million was for the Waterford Waste Treatment Plant, and that was part of the OSIF application based back in 2018. And we did receive $2 million for the treatment plant. The project is now closed, and we have did the final report. So I don't believe there's any other amounts that we are.
So that was project based and not a particular allocation. Then
that's correct.
That's awesome.
And what changed after that? They didn't come out with an intake 3. I think that's now what they consider the rural and northern stream application, and we did the application for that one, which was for the Long Point Bridge and Road.
And then again, I was just surprised because I knew that the Green Stream, the first round of the Green Stream funding was closing today, and so I thought, how could they have made that announcement before the funding stream closed? So that's good to know that it was through OSIF.
And we sent in an application today.
Excellent.
For the Green Stream one.
For the Green Stream. So hopefully we can count on that one too then. Anything else from anyone? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a bit more of a follow-up on the SWIFT, if I could ask Mr. Godby. We potentially in Turkey Point this year, we've got fiber optic cable going in, gas lines going in. 2 designs are in the works for municipal drains to try to drain the water, and I think drainage at by the old Cut Hill. And I just want to hope that we can coordinate all that so we don't dig a hole, fill it back in, dig a hole, fill it back in, dig a hole back, fill it back in. Yeah, July 1st weekend would be a good time.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, with that, motion moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Ravitz, that bylaw 2020-06 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this council meeting held on the 22nd of January 2020 be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? And that's carried. And next, motion moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Ravitz, that council be adjourned at 6:26 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. Council's